How do you characterize this week that we've seen in politics?
Well, it has been certainly a week of just constant news and new ideas and new people and new moments. It has been a lot. And I do think everyone needs to take a big, deep breath and see where we're going to go. But it is clear that the Democratic Party had no appetite for another conversation about who should lead it after President Biden stepped back and stepped away. It's very evident that the Democratic Party wants to take on former President Trump. They have put their support behind the vice president, and they are in every way seemingly ready to roll.
Well, it's interesting how that has changed so much over the course of just a week. When we were in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention, Lara, the conversation was which governor might rise to the top here and create a whole new ticket if Joe Biden drops out. Would it be Shapiro, Beshear, all the same names we're hearing now for possible running mates for Kamala Harris? There was this talk of a mini primary, the James Carville approach. We're going to take the show on the road and do, town halls across the country to make it appear that there was a contest here. But it felt differently when Joe Biden dropped out, didn't it?
Well, it did. But I would argue, and I have put forward, that this should not be surprising in the slightest, partly because it took so long for President Biden to accept that the party was really wanting him to step aside. And during that time frame, the party was kind of at odds with itself. But over the 3-week period that President Biden took to make his decision, the party realized that their best opportunity was going to be to unite behind Harris because she is the vice president. She is someone who ran for the presidency before, and she had held statewide office. So in every way, when you look at her credentials, you say to yourself, why in the world would we open ourselves up for more division when she is constitutionally his replacement should anything happen? And she is also officially on the ticket with him for which he got delegates for. No one thought that he was going to change vice presidents in advance of the convention.
Right. Well, here we are, and it's happening. And I want to ask you about strategy and the way the Kamala Harris campaign should deal with the attacks from the Trump campaign. And some of this might be based on a bit of institutional knowledge, remembering Donald Trump, of course, ran against a woman in 2016 and the experience that he had running against Hillary Clinton. We're hearing words like radical. We saw him describe Kamala Harris as dumb as a rock at an event this week, questioning her background, her smarts, and her ability to do the job. He mispronounces her name on purpose on a regular basis. I spoke with American University professor of journalism and media studies, Jane Hall, about this, Lara. We talked about Harris's candidacy with regard to Trump. Here's what she said.
It is in some ways back to the future, but I think that this is a very different moment in the media and in our politics than when Hillary Clinton had to figure out whether to call out Donald Trump for literally circling her on the stage. Kamala Harris is clearly moving to define herself and outrank and outrace Donald Trump and trying to tie her to the policies of the Biden-Harris administration.
What do you make of that, Lara? And how does Kamala Harris use Hillary Clinton as a teachable example?
Well, let me just pick up on what she was saying about it being a different time. We have to recognize that since Secretary of State Clinton ran for the presidency, we have seen not only a woman become the vice president, but we have also had a Me Too movement. We had the Women's March shortly after President Trump was inaugurated. In fact, if you recall, that was the Sunday after his Saturday inaugural ceremony. There have been many ways in which women have moved to the forefront of leadership, whether it's in athletics or the business world and also the political world since 2016.
How much time does she have to roll out a running mate? Should she wait for the convention or not?
Well, she won't. The party is wanting to have a confirmed ticket by August 7th because of the Ohio ballot issue, whereby they need, in order to print their ballots, to have those names to them by August 7th. And even though Ohio has passed legislation to extend that deadline does not come into effect until September 1st. And that has made the DNC very worried that Republicans would try to sue were they to miss the 7th deadline.
So we'll do the virtual thing, I guess. Who's your front runner? Are you allowed to tell me?
Well, here's what I will tell you. It's not going to be about what any of us think. It's going to be about what Vice President Harris is comfortable with. It is true that the most important part of selecting a vice president is that you pick someone with whom you have a strong working relationship with, that you believe and trust can do the job. You also need someone who's going to be good at being an attack dog, and not everyone can do that. So even though on paper people look good, sometimes there are surprises. If I were sort of throwing a dart, I actually would not consider Governor Cooper of North Carolina out of this.
Oh, I have to ask you why now.
Well, they served together as attorneys general back in sort of the early 2000s, I guess it was.
Okay.
And what you saw was them really developing a strong rapport. They were working on, I should say, 2010s, because really they were working on going after the banks with respect to foreclosure problems, whether it was robo-signing or some of what came about with MERS.